Hi, everybody. How are you doing today? Thanks for joining me for this prayerful pause with the pastor. A few moments to think of something greater than ourselves. In this case, I'm bringing back to you, I think I shared once before, a book that I'm working my way through and going to use as the basis for, I don't know if it's going to be a class or a workshop that my friend Sonia and I will lead sometime this fall. But it's called White Privilege Pop Quiz. And I like it because it doesn't beat people up, but it really draws your attention to things. For instance, it's written by a white gal who grew up actually in Messina, New York, Molly Secours, and now she's a writer and filmmaker, and she's down, I think, in Nashville. Anyway, she says in the beginning, if I can find this quickly, that being identified as white is not a problem per se, but rather that whiteness means in our, but rather what whiteness means in our culture and how that is problematic. And that's what she looks at here. And she says there are no, unlike a pop quiz at school, there are no wrong answers, only truthful ones. There's no scoring, but if you continue and consistently answer in the last couple of options that she gives you each time, for most or many of the questions, there's a good chance you are someone who is familiar with white privilege and experience it on a daily basis. So, I'm going to bring up a question to us today for you to answer. And I think this is the second or third question she asks, and then she discusses each one and gives you points to discuss if you're doing it as a group. When was the first time, how old were you, the first time that you realized your racial identity played a pivotal role in your life? Were you 1 to 5 years old, or 6 to 10, 11 or over, or never? And she says this isn't a trick question. Although if you identify as white, it might feel like one. The age and context in which you first discovered what it means to be white is a critical component. If you can't remember the first time you were made aware of your racial identity, then it is highly likely you haven't wrestled with it, or you were born on Mars where it's rumored that race is irrelevant, or you do live here on Earth and have experienced privileges in ways you aren't aware of or have denied. If you are a person of color, there is little chance you didn't choose number 1 to 5 years. You probably have a memorable story, if not several novels worth, of how and when you discovered what it meant to be non-white. Regardless of whether you were born in Harlem or rural Wisconsin, while the story details might reveal different fashion trends and hairstyles, there's a good chance the essence of your racial revelation is similar. However, if you're white, most likely your story of racial awareness is tied to what it means for someone else not being white. Living in the South, I've had ample opportunity to ask white people when they first became aware of their whiteness. 9 times out of 10, the stories come in the form of having observed discrimination of some sort in their family, school, or church. Rarely are white people able to easily articulate what it means to be white. Often, observations about whiteness seem to be made from afar, even if it's happening on the other side of the room. I've met numerous people raised in white Southern, upper middle class households who fondly remember a black woman who was in service to their families as their first caretaker and with whom they formed their first emotional attachment. They will insist that, because of this affectionate affiliation, they are immune from internalized racial biases. Many seem to fail to understand that the relationship, no matter how loving, was indeed an unequal relationship in which their caretaker was subservient. This isn't to say that these relationships aren't authentic, or that genuine feelings of love and concern never existed between white people and non-white people. Very often, when white people do reflect on racial dynamics, we tend to focus on the injustices endured by people of color rather than the privileges white people enjoy. Notice how this helps us keep a safe distance from personal responsibility when it comes to inequities. She goes on with that one for a while longer. So, how old were you when you realized that your racial identity played a pivotal role in your life? If nothing else, she ends the chapter by saying, because I am white, I can decide not to discuss race or my whiteness or address it on any level. We can afford to do that. People of color can't afford. It's with them every day. It smacks them right up in the face every day. Because I'm white, I'm the expert on whether I'm a racist, and if I determine that I'm not, then the need to discuss my own privilege is taken off the table. Wrong. So wrong. Because I'm white, if I start to feel bad during a racial conversation because of my perceived whiteness, I can just walk away and forget about it. Because I'm white, I can claim fatigue at being blamed for all racial problems and excuse myself from the conversation. Because I'm white, I cannot know the fatigue passed down from black grandmothers for centuries. And sometimes, she writes, I resent others for harping on the subject of race, and am tired of feeling the pressure to be, quote, politically correct. I've often said that term politically correct is a misnomer. It's not politically correct, it's just correct. If we are kind, considerate, open, and compassionate, it's just correct. We don't do things because of political correctness. We do it because of kindness or courtesy or just plain old good manners, you know? I heartily recommend this book if you have anybody to share it with or not. White Privilege Pop Quiz. It really causes us to think. And I'm looking forward to teaching this or leading discussions around it with my friend Sonia Kennedy, very strong, faith-filled, beautiful inside and out black woman who also happens to be the clerk of session for our South Presbyterian Church in Rochester, New York, where I am the pastor, Deb Swift. Thank you for joining me for this prayerful pause with the pastor. I look forward to seeing you next time, and until then, wrestle a little. Wrestle a little with race, whether you're white or non-white. Wrestle a little with privilege, because we all have some privilege of one form or another. This just happens to be around color. There's educational privilege, there's sexual privilege, as in heterosexual privilege. All kinds of assumptions are made. Let's wrestle a little. Good time for it in the summer, right? Okay, everybody. Take care. Until next time, God bless, and bye for now.